Make sure you watch the video all the way through. I'm going to be giving you more target levels for Bitcoin, levels I'm watching, technical levels, important trend lines. Watch the video all the way through. Now the S&P is already reaching the monthly trend line, but if it can reach this trend line, and monthly trend line has risen a little bit because we tagged it at the end of November, but if we can reach this trend line right here, again, up to that monthly trend line and maybe slightly overthrow it and hit this high 6,100 area. If we do that, Bitcoin can exceed 100,000 and go to some of the trend lines I'll be talking about in this video. So keep that in mind and go watch my stock video. I talk about this in great length and detail, show you the trend lines on the monthly, the weekly, the daily. As I'm looking at in the 6,100 range, we're about to hit, and I think we'll turn off those levels. If the market turns off those levels, Bitcoin do that simultaneously or to that same time. Rising wedges, a larger one here in the weekly time frame, a smaller one in the daily. I talk about all that, so go watch my video. I'll link it at the end of this video. Why should you care about the stock market? Because the stock market and Bitcoin have a positive correlation. I want to be watching the stock market and some of these trend lines I'm talking about on Bitcoin, but the trend lines in the stock market as well. Please support the channel with the link directly below that allows me to be able to provide you this information. If you like the charts, you like the indicators, please consider supporting the channel. I don't have any sponsors because I don't want to send you to exchanges that want to get you all leveraged up to wipe you out. I want to send you to websites that want to sell you stuff, but I need to have you partner with me in order to make it work. So please consider helping out today, supporting the channel. Follow the link below to take you to a secured site. You can donate any amount you want or make it a recurring donation, but please consider supporting the channel today. I thank you for your consideration. For that, I want to continue to point out, again, the signals are bullish. The bulls are in control. Momentum flipped briefly, but it flipped back to bullish. Form a triangle, which we're now attempting to break out of. Watch the video all the way through. You'll see that, but again, momentum turned bullish right after we hit, bounced off that 55,000, or I'm sorry, the 52,000 area, and we saw a bounce off 52, 53,000. We saw the momentum line, and then eventually the arrow began to show up with momentum, and then eventually we broke out, breaking the downward trend line. We back tested and broke out. Bulls are back in control. Momentum has been bullish. The trend turned bullish here. It was validated with momentum going positive in the weekly time frame. Signals remain bullish. The bulls are in control. If back below the 20-week moving average, I talked about my last video, we drop back below the 100 period moving average, it would be bearish, likely going to exceed 100,000 very soon. I'll talk about the target levels in this video. Watch the video all the way through. Trump, the crypto community is applauding this. Trump plans to nominate Paul Atkins as SEC chair in a crypto-friendly move. President-elect Donald Trump, keeping with his promise, crypto-friendly administration plans to nominate the former SEC Commissioner Paul Atkins to the head of the agency. If confirmed, he'll succeed Gary Gensler, who has been a very unfriendly SEC chair to the crypto community. So that's a positive for cryptocurrency. Currently, Bitcoin is up on this Wednesday session with about 4 hours to the close. We are up 1.62%, bouncing up the 20-period moving average. That's a blue line you see over here. After dropping 9% to the 20-period, we bounced just above it there. And again, we've had this rebound and a little bit of a pullback testing that 20 period. Again, we're watching to see if we can clear that 100,000 area. Talked about the targets if we do that, and again, I'll show you a few more levels I'm watching today. Again, since the 52,000 area, this 52, 53,000 area, we bounced off of Bitcoin's average price. Signals have been consistently bullish, except for a few pullbacks here with the bull flag, and here off of the trend line, and then here off of horizontal resistance. Back tested that trend line of the breakout. Recent pullback of the 9%. My signals have been consistently bullish. Would mark the pullbacks, but then they would revert right back to bullish signals right after the pullback was done. Consistently finding support at the 20 period ever since we bounced out the 50 and the 100 here, we got back above the blue line, the 20 period. The 50 is the green, the pink line is the 100. And again, we've been finding support at that 100, or I'm sorry, at that 20 period moving average after bouncing off the 100 over and over again. And here we are doing it again as of yesterday's low and today's low, trying to bounce off that 20 period moving average in the daily time frame. We also just had Powell speak just a little bit ago during the session. With yesterday's bounce, we now have a possible triangle continuation pattern. Triangles can break either way, but if it is a continuation pattern, again, we could exceed this level and get above that 100,000 area. Pretty reliable patterns here. We had the rising wedge give us a breakdown of the pullback. The pullback gave us the bull flag. Now we have a triangle, potentially a continuation pattern for Bitcoin. Again, I told you in my last update that momentum was flipping bearish. Trend was still bullish, and in the weekly time frame, our signals, our momentum and trend signals remain bullish. The bulls are in control. As long as things are bullish, we can go a whole lot higher. About if we clear the 100,000 area, we may overthrow it a little bit, or we may go up to 110 to 115,000. I've shown you the trend lines and the targets. I'll talk more about that. But here we're seeing, again, momentum as we're forming a triangle. Broken out yet, but as we form the triangle that I spoke about, again, we saw the momentum line go bearish, back to bullish, back to bearish, now back to bullish. Again, showing the sideways movement here. Signals go bearish. Look at the red arrow. Look at the momentum line. And then over here, we saw the blue arrow. We saw the blue. It flipped back to blue briefly, and then it went back to red here, and we got the red sell, and then now back to blue, again showing the sideways price movement. All the while, balance of power is still in positive territory. The bulls are still in control as we're forming a possible continuation triangle. Now, triangles can break either way, but again, probably see a move above 100,000. Levels I've been talking about could be close but no cigar, but we have to see signals turn, and we're seeing a sideways move now in the form of a triangle. So it's highly probable we're going to get above the 100,000 area. I'll show you the levels I'm watching on that, but wanted to talk about that because, again, I talked about momentum trying to turn back here. After it turned here, it turned up, and then it failed, got a lower high, and now it's trying to, again, turn back up, forming a triangle. We're getting a little shaded area telling us a squeeze move is coming, and again, the triangles can be reversal or continuation patterns. If we get the upward resolution, go above 100,000. So far, we've hit 99,800. We can see that squeeze move. As we saw it back over here with the back test, we saw the same thing ahead of the election rally. Now, just quickly, as I'm making the video, the rally is getting stronger and stronger, so we might even get a breakout today. We're up 2.5% right now. Again, so we'll be watching the triangle here on Bitcoin. But talking over and over about a triple divergence forming here on the RSI, forming with momentum. If I zoom out just a little bit, I talked about a divergence forming like this right here at the March peak. We got that, but it only gave us a pullback to the 9%, and I told you to be watching. We get a mild pullback. Do we get a bigger pullback? If we get the mild pullback, we can form the triple divergence I've been talking about here. Looks like that's going to be the case, and again, looks like we're attempting to break out of a triangle this session. Rally continues. We're now up 2.68%, so again, could be trying to break out of that here with today's session. Talked about a divergence developing on the MACD. I've been talking about Bitcoin going up to a new all-time high and either hitting the trend lines again or exceeding them and overthrowing the 100,000 area, 102, 103, 104, 105,000, going up to the trend line, talking about 110, 115. There's another trend line I want to show you, but again, I've been talking about this triple divergence right here for quite a while here on the RSI. And with momentum, it's doing it as well. Could allow that MACD to form a negative divergence. And we saw the same thing here again. Momentum. We saw this negative divergence. It gave us a 9% sell, but the trend signals remained bullish. We got a pullback. We saw momentum turn briefly bearish, turn back to bullish, turn briefly bearish again with the impulse line. Again, doing the same thing as the momentum line. But trend signals remain bullish, and I told you to be watching. Do we get a bigger sell-off or mild pullback and start forming triple divergences here on the daily chart with things like RSI and here with momentum. And once again, signals have been consistently bullish from back over here, the bounce off of Bitcoin's average price at that 52,000 area. Bouncing, we hit 52, 53,000 there. We began to see signals begin to turn back to bullish, bouncing off that level. And then the bullish signals reaffirmed off the 100 period moving average right here. That's that pink line that you see right there. We've had some mild pullbacks. I've talked about those pullbacks along the way. Most recent one here at 9%, we got a warning sign for that too. But again, my signals, which are correct, remain bullish. The trend signals remain bullish. Momentum now has flipped back to bullish. And again, our weekly signals remain bullish. The bulls are in control. Looking at levels where prices might stall, but if the bulls can clear the resistance level we're at right now, some areas where we might go to above 100,000. Now, I've talked to you about these trend lines in the weekly time frame. This is from the 2021 highs, and we've just moved just above it. We're back above it again. And the trend line right here from the 2021 low to the higher low here in early 2022. And again, if you exclude the shadows right there, it's pointing right up to the level where we just recently hit. Now, again, we could just come back up to that trend line and straddle along it and get rejection there. Okay, that's possible. And I talked about that possibility the last several updates. If we form a divergence, a triple divergence, it may be we just form it right around this level. But if we exceed this level, if we exceed this trend line, a couple other trend lines I'm looking at, and that's with the channel right here, again, the weekly time frame. If we exceed these trend lines, then we can go a little bit higher. Then you have the upper channel. Now, the red boundary is a parallel boundary here, including the shadows and including this shadow right here, and that would take us up again towards 110, 115,000 area, 120 if we take our time reaching it. Then I have the black channel here, and I slightly excluded the shadows here, and I've connected that, made a perfectly parallel channel from these highs over here to the high here, but excluding the shadow, and again pointing very close to that same area, right around that same area. If we hit it immediately, or again a little bit longer, 120,000, but 110, 115,000. Now again, this is the log scaling, looking at the trend lines over here in 2021 over here, in 2022, and then the channel here from low in 2022 and these levels here, the higher lows and higher highs set up. I'm looking at these levels. Now, there is another level that's similar to this channel right here, and that is if we look at it, not with the log scaling, but with the linear scaling. Let me show you that. Now, this trend line is our linear scaling from the 2017 high over here, connected to the 221 peaks. Now, again, here I have just taken a trend line that excluded the shadow here, excluded a couple of the shadows here, included the shadow here from the peak in 2021 at the 69,000 area, and it's pointing up to about 106 to 108 or 9,000, depending on when we come into contact with it. And again, if you take longer to come into contact with it, the further right you go to the chart, the higher the level goes. It's just connecting these 3 points, 2017's high, the first 2021 high, the second 2021 peak there at the top, and that would be this level right here. And that would take us, again, just overthrowing those other trend lines I talked about, and would take us just above 100,000. So if we exceed this level, then we're looking again at the channel line, about 110 to 115,000, maybe as high as 120, depending on when we come into contact with it. So just some things to be aware of, these trend lines. But wanted to show you the linear scaling here too, because I got a nice trend line out of that when I was looking at my linear chart. So let me show you the chart a little bit closer here. And again, this is the linear scaling, 2017 high, excluding these shadows. Do you see what I've done? I've excluded the shadows there and connected it here. Hang on, it moves slightly on me here. This program, I love the charts, but sometimes you hit save on the trend lines and they move. Okay, so again, slightly excluding some of the shadows here, and again, connecting it to this point. You're looking at, again, if we hit it immediately, maybe 105 or 6,000, as high as 108 to 9,000 if we take a little bit of time. This is the weekly chart right here, but that's what I'm looking at. We do have, again, bearish divergences that are forming, but again, they may take their time in forming. may not be done yet. I talked about the divergence looking very similar to the divergence over here at this peak. But another trend line I'm watching with the linear scaling, trend lines I've been showing you have been in the log scaling. People use one, some people use the other. I use both. Now, again, we have this divergence on the RSI. We have the divergence forming on the MACD, and a lot of other indicators, a price oscillator, a lot of them are forming these divergences. The stochastic up here at extreme. So we'll be watching to see if we clear that previous peak, if we get above 100,000. Currently, we're at 98,276 right at the moment as I'm making the video, with about 3.5 hours left in the session. At the moment, Bitcoin's up about 1.25% for the week after selling off earlier in the week. We had seen a 9% sell-off previously and rebounded, started to sell off again, and again out that 20 period in the daily time frame. Bringing this chart just a little bit better, a little bit closer up so you could just see it again. Just want to make this trend line clearly seen up close here, just so you can see again. It's right around 105, 106,002. That's if we hit it immediately. If we take a little bit of time, again, you're looking more at about 108, 109,000. Something we're paying attention to. Another thing, not based on percentage moves, but based on a measured move from the breakout of 2017, moving above that high to the peak that we moved up to right here. A measured move from that point, from the breakout of this area right here to higher, a measured move would take Bitcoin to about 118 to 119,000. Not based on percentage, based on a measured move. As I'm making the video, Bitcoin's attempting to break out of the triangle, and again, that triple divergence is coming into play here. Again, we'll be watching to see if we hit 100,000. Let's see what we're at right now. 98,922. So we'll be watching to see if we exceed 100,000 this week, the next day or two or three. And again, by the close, do we have a breakout of the triangle? Here is the 4-hour chart. Again, we're trying to break out of that triangle, the sideways consolidation. We've gotten back above the 50-period moving average here in the 4-hour time frame. And again, Divergence only gave us a sideways correction. We're now looking like we're going to resume the advance and likely clear the 100,000 area. Divergence is on the 4-hour chart here, gave us a 9% sell-off, but it formed a triangle and now looks to be breaking out, and again, could form a brand new divergence on the 4-hour chart to form triple divergences on those daily charts that I've talked about. We got confirmation of a higher low on the RSI and the MACD, and again, the 9% correction, we corrected sideways with a more mild pullback rather than a deeper pullback to the 200 or 400 period moving averages or something uglier. Again, continuation pattern likely going to exceed 100,000 very quickly coming days ahead. Bitcoin's currently up, as I'm making the video, 3.25%. We've had this divergence. It gave us on pring parameter. It gave us that 9%. It gave us a triangle. Again, it's going to go higher, and we're likely going to see a multiple point triple divergence develop here with pring parameter as well. Again, signals briefly turned bearish on the daily chart, only to form this sideways triangle. Signals are now, momentum signals, now back to bullish, resuming the advance, breaking out of the triangle, even as we make the video here in the last few hours of the trading session. We're watching to see if Bitcoin can clear this trend line right here, right there, and if it does, then those other targets come into play. And those are the targets I've been talking about, and then I showed you the linear target today as well. Wanted to make you aware of that. And weekly signals continue to be bullish. Here's the momentum. It turned bullish right after we hit the 52,000 area. After momentum turned bullish, we saw the trend signals begin to turn bullish. We got the breakout, and again, it looks like we're going to try to move now above 100,000. We go to the linear trend line, 106, 5 to 106 to maybe as high as 108 or 9,000, or do we go higher log trend line and reach 110, 115,000? Some important trend lines I'm watching there in the weekly time frame. As I'm making the video, we're now up 3.32%. And again, it looks like we're attempting to get a breakout here. If I just bring it up close here, you can see, again, it's attempting to break out of a triangle formation, bouncing off our 20-period moving average. Now, again, quickly, Bitcoin got that 9 count. I told you, so far that 9 count peak is holding, but I told you we could exceed it. We can go a little bit higher and then begin to turn down. Maybe that's to the 108, 109,000 area on that high end of the linear scaling. Maybe we reach the log scaling, clear this area about 110, 115,000. But wanted to show you the linear and the log scaling trend lines. I think they're important levels of resistance, but again, we can overthrow this 9 count, go a little bit higher, exceed 100,000, and then begin to turn. Will the next downturn, not this downturn we just had of 9%, but will the next downturn, after we've likely exceeded 100,000, will that mark a pullback or a reversal, a bigger pullback, a reversal? But again, turned bearish briefly. Daily time frame reverted right back to bullish. Weekly signals are still bullish, but wanted to continue to pay attention to this because this is showing price exhaustion. Oftentimes you'll exceed the 9 count and then turn. I also talked about if we got rejection and that level did hold, sometimes the 9 count high does hold. I told you, is it going to be close but no cigar with 100,000? Do we get a reversal bar? So far, a triangle, and the triangle is now breaking out. If it's that way by the close, we want to be watching this closely because, again, it's going to be hard for Bitcoin to continue to rally longer term because we know recession is right around the corner. It can peak ahead of the recession. It can peak right as the recession begins. If it drags out into the first quarter here, it could take Bitcoin a lot higher, even if it pulls back. It also peak. We're going to start the recession sooner rather than later. Stock market, 2007, it peaked about 2 months before the recession hit. It peaked in October, and the recession hit in December. Likely be that way with Bitcoin. The target level now with the S&P 500, we're reaching the monthly trend line. Go watch my latest stock video. You'll see that in there. As I've said, I thought we'd rally up to 6,100 area, likely the high 6,100 area, just under 6,200 there, where the trend line is in the weekly time frame. Go watch the video and you'll see that. Could allow Bitcoin to go higher towards some of the trend lines I've been talking about in this video.